I've been in that doom loop because I see myself in that as a CEO, and the times I was there, the doubt and frustration that I had and the feeling of loneliness, quite frankly.
I felt exactly the same way, right? It's lonely at the top a lot. But man, if we can help people navigate around those a little bit quicker, get them to a place where they're feeling good about what they're doing, and we can help remove some of that uncertainty through this podcast, man, I
Yeah.
feel really good about that.
I hope that people take some things from it and are able to get unstuck. All right, so this is it. This is our first inaugural podcast of Escape the CEO Doom Loop. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and I'll go after that.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is John Ninkovich. I am a CEO and leadership team coach. The name of my organization is Performance Group, and I use a methodology called metronomics. I've been coaching organizations for about 7 years now. Got into this in 2017, 2018 timeframe. I work with business owners, CEOs, and their teams to help them figure out where they're going with their company and how do we help navigate around the difficulties that everybody will experience in every business. They tend to repeat themselves, those difficulties. So that's just a short update about me, who I am, and what I do.
All right, John, where are you based out of?
Oh, good question. I'm actually out of Detroit, Michigan, suburbs of Detroit, Michigan, Novi, Michigan. I work with clients really all over the Midwest. Most of my work is in the Midwest, working with organizations that are transitioning from one generation of leadership to the next. So I do a lot of work with companies that have been around for a long time as they're in that transition from, the first generation to second or third to fourth or fourth to fifth generation. Those owners, CEOs have some questions about how to do that and how do we get the right team in place and how do we put the next generation of leadership in place in the organization and what's the process for how we do that. So I spend a lot of my time working with those kind of organizations that are going through that journey.
That's great, John.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm Glen Dall. I'm actually from Detroit originally, but I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota right now. And so I am as well a CEO and leadership team coach like John, member of Metronomics. That's the framework that we use for our coaching. I work with family businesses and I tend to work a fair amount in construction business, but also in other industries as well. Quite a bit with owner entrepreneurs who are looking to scale their company, entrepreneurs who are really good at what they do, have grown and scaled a company on sheer force of will, their knowledge of the business and hard work and perseverance. But at a point, as we all do, we find ourselves not really making the same kind of progress, doing the same things we did. And I like John Maxwell quote, "What got you here won't get you there." That's a syndrome as well of when companies reach a certain revenue goals, a certain number of employees, and they kind of hit that plateau and sometimes even the valley of death. So I think I really enjoy working with owner entrepreneurs and CEOs to get past the valley of death and get onto that next growth curve.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. I do a lot of work up here in the Midwest. I've got clients in Minneapolis, Chicago. I've got clients in Florida and also New York. I enjoy traveling a little bit. A new client, they have some operations in Texas. So get down there.
It's nice to get in the warm weather a little bit in the winter, right?
I would agree.
Yeah.
All right, John. So here's our next question for us. Why this podcast? Why are we doing a podcast? Just because everybody else is doing it?
Well, hopefully it's not that. Through the work that I've been doing, you've been doing, and we collaborate a lot, there's a lot of things that we're gaining insight on. We're seeing that are happening across the organizations that we work with. So you and I have an opportunity to collaborate a lot and share ideas and help each other kind of think about how do I help clients with this or that, right? And I think the reality is that there is a journey that organizations go through, as you were talking a little bit about in your introduction. As a guy that's been lucky enough to own businesses and run businesses and been through that journey, I really realized that I needed help. I needed coaching from other people that have been there and done that. And there were times when I was a young CEO, young business owner, where I didn't know what to do. And I was frustrated. And even more than that, I think uncertain. And I think uncertainty is one of the worst things to have to deal with in life, whether that's personally and professionally. And so, I think that as we've talked about putting a podcast together, for me, it's really about helping business owners, CEOs. There's going to be days of unbelievable joy, and there's going to be days where you want to jump off the plank. And you and I have talked about this, Glenn. We've been through that as CEOs where
Right.
you're just like, gosh, I don't think I can do this anymore. Or, hey, my gosh, everything's going great. We've got a great team in place. We're winning new work. We're executing consistently. We're making a lot of money, and it's all wonderful. But it's really peaks and valleys. A big part of what hopefully we can do with this podcast is give people tools, tips, insight into things that they can do to help relieve some of that uncertainty, help give them a framework and a thought process about how do I move in one direction or another through the ability to listen to some of the things that we're talking about. The work that we do tends to repeat itself over and over again. I think that's the reason I got into coaching. It was really an opportunity for me to be able to share with people things I did to overcome and hopefully be successful. Most of those learnings for me were not from the things I did well. They weren't my successes. They were really more about my failures, which has been a lot of those, a ton of failures. And if I can help people navigate around those failures, I think that those failures are really helpful. When you look back on those over time, right, they help get you to the point you're at today. But man, if we can help people navigate around those a little bit quicker, get them to a place where they're feeling good about what they're doing, and we can help remove some of that uncertainty through this podcast where we give them one little thing that they can take and use. Man, I feel really good about that. And it's really about helping people. And that's hopefully what the podcast is about. And that's why I'm a coach. How do we help people really navigate through the journey of being a business owner, CEO? Because it all sounds good until you're in the seat. And then you're like, holy moly, this is big. There's a lot here. And hopefully we can help people navigate that. So that's why I think we're doing this podcast. How about you?
Yeah. I saw a video the other day that was filmed at a Metronomics workshop in Chicago last fall. Shannon Susko led that, leader of the Metronomics group. But I did a icebreaker introduction. And there's probably about 50 people in the room, business leaders, CEOs, owners. Some of my clients were there, other coaches' clients, and some other people who had bought tickets for the event. And before I did the icebreaker, I shared a bit about my CEO journey. I was watching the video. I hadn't seen it since then. I just saw it yesterday. And I cringed. I was like, oh my God, I actually said that out loud. My investors, the company, and in all of that, I always kept them top of mind. And one thing I found myself doing is not taking care of myself well enough, thinking I had to be the smartest person in the rooms. And really what unearthed a lot of things, I think for both of us, is our collaboration, the CEO playbook. We interviewed 72 CEOs for that project, and they hear the struggles and frustrations. Almost every CEO feels that. I was out to dinner with CEO, a new client, and he was really talking about the imposter syndrome. And he actually did share that he enjoyed it when I did share my story because it makes you vulnerable versus an authority, a business coaching, an experienced coach who ran a publicly traded company. It makes me want to open up more and be better. Just like you said, for us to be able to share those experiences on this podcast and then be able to think about, as you said, because the painful lessons, the ones we pay the most for, are usually the failures. That's usually what we learn best from. The stuff that comes easy, we don't value it. And we tend to not learn. And I think many times when we are successful, we're in the right place at the right time, but we think we're geniuses. I see this all the time. I heard a statistic recently, I don't know if it's true or not, but that half of all bankruptcies happen the year after a company's record year.
Oh, wow. You can see that where people things are going really good. Revenue's growing. The team's working well. They're making a lot of profit. And they're kind of like, okay, this is just going to continue. And the reality is it doesn't continue. If you're not on top of your game, looking at the future, you're not planning for the future, you're not continuing to make the right moves, the right people moves, which was the most important thing. Past success doesn't guarantee future success. And I think that's really true in business. And you're only as good as your last day. You got to be on top of things to stay relevant and stay in business for sure.
One of the clients I'm working with had a really big record year, made a lot of money. And then they didn't. They were in the right place at the right time. Their business is weather dependent, and the key leaders really weren't equipped for it. And most people in the company got complacent. They made a lot of money. They made a lot of profit. There were big bonuses. And then the following year, people didn't want to work quite so hard. The forward flowing business crashing down and a lot of reality. And I talked to the CEO. I said, you know what? In some ways, I'm really happy that you had that bad year because it really made you take stock of what you really need to do. And one of his mottos now is he calls it win on purpose. We don't want to win just by being lucky. We want to win on purpose. He's being much more strategic. He's done a lot of some reorganization with his people, brought in some new talent in a much more strategic fashion, and is now really confident about his future because he's going to be much more prepared for the ups and downs of his business. And strategically, we're planning on how can he diversify so he can even that out and get a predictability in his business
Yeah.
every CEO wants and needs.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's a lot of organizations that are successful, sometimes in spite of themselves, right? They're smart to take advantage of that. Maybe they're a little bit lucky, but the work we're trying to do and the things that we're talking to our clients about is how to become predictable and how to become confident in our ability to kind of look at what the future and how do we have a right strategy, but then how do we go execute that consistently to be successful and thoughtful so that we're not just lucky. I think as a part of running any business, if you look at people that are really successful, there is a rhythm to what they do and how they do it. Sometimes it's not sexy. Sometimes it can be a little bit dull and boring. It's one of the things you got to do. It's part of that process that as a business owner and as a coach, we have to help those business owners put that discipline in place to be repeatable and confident that year after year, we're going to be successful for sure.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Something I learned earlier on in my coaching career. So I've been coaching almost 7 years. I remember being shy about telling my clients how long it would take. They always wanted to see results quickly, and I wanted to help them get there, let them think. It's like, oh, yeah, we can get a lot of work done. What I really found is that it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in the first year. Now, we'll see wins, we'll see improvements. And now I tell new clients when they come in, I said, it's going to take at least 3 years. If you're going to run a marathon, you can't get off the couch and run a marathon tomorrow. Business is a team sport. It's everybody in the organization, starting with the leader, then with their senior leadership team, and then cascading down. That takes a lot of time.
So I agree with you. And I kind of see 3 years as the time horizon to really evolve things, get that foundation built, and be able to start to execute consistently, right? It's that time
Yes.
frame. I guess, what are your thoughts around kind of what's the number one reason that you think it takes 3 years?
The number one is the people decisions.
Yeah.
I think you and I agree on the fact that success for our clients is how fast they can get to an all 8-player senior leadership team.
Yep.
What do you think about that?
I agree 100%. One of the things that I like to talk to clients about when I speak a little bit, the things I'll talk to people about is that I don't care what your industry is. I tend to do a lot of work in construction also, but I don't really care if you're in the construction business or manufacturing or healthcare. The reality is that you're in the people business, and everything gets a lot easier if you have the right people doing the right things that fit your culture. And I think that the thing that's the hardest for business owners and CEOs is truly understand and embrace that they may not have the right people to help them become more predictable around the business, growing and being successful, creating cash, winning the kind of customers that they want. It's often you just have this team of people at the top of the organization. That's why we're a CEO and leadership team coaches. We're not just working with the CEO, we're working with the CEO and that broader team. The reality is that team having the right people that can work cohesively together on the business, for the business, and not for themselves within their function. It's really easy to say, and it's hard to do. And our journey as a coach is to help those CEOs understand that maybe they have all the right people. You and I know we've been doing this for a number of years now, that most of the time they don't have the right people. I grew up in family-owned businesses, and I went through this with my dad. We had people that were loyal. They showed up at work every day, but they shouldn't have been managing people or leading people. They weren't the right people for those roles. And we kept them in place for a long time out of loyalty. And it really affected our ability to continue to grow our business. And over time, what we found was that our business started to decline because we didn't make the hard people decisions fast enough out of loyalty. I think that's the thing. If you can get good at that, strategy gets better when you have the right people. We can actually do strategy work and come up with a clear strategy because you have the right people. And then we can execute consistently because of the right people atop the organization. So I think it's the number one thing to get really good at. I think it's also the hardest thing to get good at because I develop personal relationships with people that work for me. I get to know their family, I get to know their kids. And I think what happens is that I hire somebody to do a job and then something happens where I kind of conflate why they're here. I have to be thoughtful about that as a CEO because I have to make those hard people decisions. I have to be constantly looking at, do I have the right people to help us get to where we want to get to organizationally? And so, yeah, I agree 100% with what you said there.
Let's talk a little bit about what we are planning for the future for this podcast.
Well, so I think, today's kind of our jumping off point, talking a little bit about why the heck are we even doing a podcast? There's a lot of podcasts out there. Why are we doing one? what are our thoughts about it. Next is I think we want to talk about kind of our journeys. Like we've both run companies. In my personal journey, I think you would agree with me on this. We use this framework called metronomic. It's a great foundation for the work that we do. It brings process and discipline to how organizations should execute. It's phenomenal foundational tools that we bring to organizations. It's great. I think when you combine what we've both done personally in our role of running companies and dealing with boards and trying to find ways to make cash, to get cash in the bank to be able to make payroll. I think part of our journey we're going to talk about is kind of what was that journey like for us and how did we get to where we're at today to hopefully add value to our clients. We bring a great framework, but also we've been there. We sat in that seat together. When you pair that together,
Yeah.
hopefully we can talk about real world things that have occurred that we need to navigate around. Our goal is to bring other coaches, other CEOs, other business owners in and really talk about what they're experiencing in their journey. Hopefully there's some commonality in that, right? But obviously I think there'll be some uniqueness. And so it's really a kind of an evolutionary process where we want to bring a little bit of a lot of different things to help round out what's happening in business today and one of the things that we should be thinking about and moving forward with.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I have a story. I got a call from a CEO that I know who's not been a client, and he runs a lower middle market company, 180, $200 million in revenue. He started it from nothing 16, 18 years ago. He's done a phenomenal job. He had attended a CEO lunch and learn I did last fall based around the CEO playbook topics. I'd given him a copy of the CEO playbook that we published, and he called me up and said, Glenn, I have two things. One, he was looking for a leadership position open. Number two, he said, I got to tell you, Glenn, the book you gave me, I just put it in my briefcase. I was on a trip recently and I was on a plane and I fished it out. I sat there and read it. I want to thank you for writing a book about me.
Oh,
Because
wow.
every single thing in that book, I've either experienced or I'm experiencing right now.
Yeah.
And he said, thank you for not putting my name on it.
Funny. That's
But
funny.
he goes, every single thing that the CEO playbook talks about in our research after those interviews was something that we call now the CEO doom loop. And I've had other CEOs tell me like, oh yeah, I've been in that doom loop. It resonates with me because I see myself in that as a CEO and the times I was there, the doubt and frustration that I had and the feeling of loneliness, quite frankly.
Yeah, I felt exactly the same way. It's lonely at the top a lot, and who can you confide in and help talk about the real things that you're thinking about, right? There's all that
Right.
uncertainty that you're making decisions like, is this the right decision to do this acquisition, right? It's all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think that doom loop is a reality. You and I have done a couple presentations to CEO groups on the CEO playbook, and the doom loop is a component of that. I did a session last fall where I had 18 or 19 CEOs from different businesses. And every one of them came up after and said, oh my gosh, is this really me? This is what it's like. And it's scary sometimes. I don't know what did they do. I really connected with all of them in the same way that you're discussing.
Yeah. And let us not forget that the title of our podcast is Escape the CEO Doom Loop.
Yeah.
So that's really our goal, bringing on CEOs, clients, coaches who were CEOs, who ran companies, and really talking about their journeys and what they learned from their challenges, their successes in that role. And now if they're coaches, what do they see in their client companies? And through those shared experiences and the successes that come out of it and the learnings is of what we really hope to share with other business owners, other CEOs that might be able to listen in, just change one person's life a little bit. Like you said it before, if someone can listen to this and come away with one thing that they say, wow, I learned something today, I'm going to do something about that, then I think we'll be successful.
I agree 100%. I think as you're talking, something that popped in my head that hopefully we can make business owners aware that you're all going to experience a CEO doom loop. It is part of being a CEO. And hopefully through this podcast, we can get people to really understand this is a normal part of being a CEO. It's not all success. There's a lot of getting kicked in the teeth, a ton of getting kicked in the teeth. And I think that hopefully we can share that. But what do you do about it? How do you overcome it? How do you move forward in a positive way? Because you can't stay stuck. I mean, what happens when you're the CEO or a business owner is that this stuff is going to happen to you all the time. And everybody's looking at what you do and how you respond.
Yeah, I was talking with a CEO the other day who's in the doom loop, and he was sharing with me that he said, the other day I drove to work and I sat in my car for 10 minutes in the parking lot. I just couldn't bear to go inside yet. And I shared with the team about my outlook for this year, and I just didn't feel the energy. And we need to talk a bit about that. I said, because your team is looking to you to be courageous, to be the leader. And it's good to be vulnerable. It's good to recognize issues. At the same time, you need to be able to have the courage to lead through that, to address the issues head on and say, what are we going to do about it? What can we do about it? Pick some of the best ones, right? Pick our priorities, our best path forward, and then let's execute on that.
Yeah.
And hopefully I was able to help them just a little bit from that, because I certainly remember those days of when I didn't even want to go into work.
Yeah, the reality is I heard this quote in the last couple of months that really stuck with me. It's around life can be hard a lot, and life as CEO can be really hard. And at times as a CEO, and I've run into this with other CEOs, I've had conversations where they kind of almost check out of the business at some point. They're still the CEO,
Hmm.
but they're not as active as they should be. They're not leading an organization because they're getting
Hmm.
kicked in the teeth, and doom loop has kind of got them. And the reality
Right.
is you can't run away from it, because no matter where you go, like you can decide that, hey, I'm going to go to Florida for 2 weeks. The reality is that you're still there. It is still with you, that stuff, whatever it is
Mhm.
that's wearing on you. So you have to be able to not stay stuck, and you have to be able to take action to change the situation you're in today. For me, that's like I go back to this uncertainty thing. And I think a lot of the doom loop is around uncertainty. I don't know what the future holds. I'm not sure what to do. And I think that if you can at least take some action on a direction, you can start to feel better, because you're at least you're moving, you're not staying stuck. And that's a big part of overcoming the
Mhm.
doom loop, is just taking action to do something, whatever that is, to change the situation you're in, and knowing that you're in it. I think a lot of CEOs know that they're in it. I don't think they know that it's normal. So they go through the motions, and they're not leading their teams. They're not leading the organization effectively.
Absolutely agree, 100%. Get unstuck, take
Yeah.
action. It's easier said than done, which is why many times someone on the outside who can help you recognize that, help you take the actions you need to get unstuck
Yeah.
and start reversing that doom loop.
I would tell you the greatest value they deliver to me is that I had regular coaching sessions with them every couple of weeks, or a real issue that I needed to talk to somebody about. That was maybe more valuable than the framework that coach brought to me. His
Sure.
ability to have my back, to challenge me when I needed to be
Mhm.
challenged, and saying, hey, John, you're approaching this as the wrong thing. Here's how you're presenting this, and this is the effect that you want to have on people. There were days that he put his arm around me through a phone call or through Teams meeting, and I needed that. And then there were days that he's going to kick me in the butt and say, hey, you're not doing a good enough job here. And man, I needed that counsel from him, because I couldn't get it anywhere else.
Mhm.
That was a huge value to me as a CEO, having somebody like that that had my back. And I knew he had my back, and he would challenge me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So this has been a great conversation. I think we're off to a great start. I think we're both really clear and aligned on why we want to do this and our path forward. I just really hope that people value it and take some things from it and are able to get unstuck.
Absolutely.
All right. Escape the CEO doom loop.
Escape the CEO doom loop.